Welcome to the Office of Undergraduate Research Education series. Today's session is on data visualization and research posters, and our speakers are Donna Baluchi and Greg Hatch. And this is a virtual event. It's being recorded, so we ask everyone to mute yourself and turn off your camera to ensure the best experience. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature, or you can unmute when you're invited by the speakers. And this is the event evaluation. We would love everyone to complete this after the presentation, but we want to remind the SPUR, Europe, and Wilkes scholars, you must complete this evaluation in order to get credit for attending today. And the mission of the Office of Undergraduate Research is to facilitate and promote undergraduate, student, faculty, collaborative research, and creative works in all disciplines throughout the U campus. And we acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The U recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes, states, and the federal government, and we affirm the U's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and community outreach activities. And now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. We have Donna Baluchi, she is Assistant Librarian Access and Outreach at the Eccles Health Science Library, and Greg Hatch, who's the Head of Creativity and Innovative Services at the Marriott Library.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Shelley, for introducing us. My name is Donna Baluchi, and I am actually up at the Eccles Health Sciences Library, but today I want to talk to all of you about one of my great passions and something that I was majored in for a little bit, which is graphic design, but more importantly, visual communication. So for all of those that are on Zoom, I would love to know if you could use like the React or the chat, how many of you have had to make a research poster before? So a handful of you have already made some. That's pretty cool. For those of you that haven't, if you're feeling any sort of like imposter syndrome or anxiety right now, me and Greg are going to do our best to help like diminish that, because we are here to help you. And by having these foundational pieces, it will be a lot easier for you to create this. So first off, what we're talking about when we're talking about research posters is this concept called visual communication. And visual communication is just organizing what you are trying to say with graphics and colors so that three things are accomplished: it is easily read, it is easily comprehended, and that is easily retained. So one of the ways you can think about your research poster is think of it like a billboard, right? So when someone is walking by your poster, if it was a billboard, what would you want to make sure that they understood very quickly by seeing your research poster? If you look at this slide, these two things are the exact same thing. They're the exact same thing. So the one on the left is a graphic that was used up at the hospital. I think it was in the elevators. And then on the right is just the plain text. The big difference between the two is the use of visual communication. So using the chat, what do you notice about the one on the left in comparison to the one on the right that you pick up immediately? Of course, yeah, it's colorful. A water bottle. So when you see that water bottle, you start thinking, hey, is this about water, right? Spacing and bolding of important text, of course, right? The left one is much easier to read. Yeah, it's engaging, huge title, leading composition. Love it. Yeah, there's a list, bullet points, lists, those help. That make it easier to read as well. The sections are separated. You are literally pointing out all the things that you are going to do in your research posters today. Yes. More space between the points. Yes. Breathing room between the sections. This is great. See? All the things that you're noticing right now, these are the kind of things that you can easily incorporate into your research posters as well. So these are all the elements of design, but the ones that you are going to focus on the most when it comes to your research posters are primarily just these four. Size. So how big is each section? Is the most important information bigger or bolder? Font. Is the font easy to read, and are you only using one or two fonts? Sure, you want to use Papyrus, you want to use Chiller. Maybe not for your research poster, unless your research is on like Halloween, right? You want it to be really easy for people to read what you've written, right? Color. So is the color adding to the poster? Are you only using two to four colors? Is there cohesion? I know a lot of you are going to feel like you have to use the University of Utah red, which is pretty bright. It's pretty out there. It does say University of Utah to anybody who's looking, but you don't have to be beholden to that red. I think that is something that I really want to impart. And then layout, more white space. Somebody brought it up earlier with the handout that there was spacing between the sections that gives your brain some breathing room and understanding that you are going from one section to the other. I would say one of the biggest flaws that I notice in research posters, and I'm not just talking with students, I mean like tenured professor researchers for decades, is that they tend to use a lot of words and the words bump up against each other so that it ends up, the whole poster just ends up looking like a giant block of text. And then it's very difficult to discern like what it's even about or to take the time to read it. The OUR office actually gave us a list of all of the different majors and focuses that all of you are from. And so this was a moment that I kind of wanted to point out. So a lot of you might be working in labs and you may have actual quantitative data. In that case, it's really easy for you to take that data and create things like statistics, graphs and charts, pie charts, bar charts, scatter plots. But for those of you who are working on, say, like community science or in the visual arts or sociology, you might not necessarily, or who are primarily working with qualitative data, so these would be like surveys and interviews, then sometimes students will say, I don't have data, so how am I supposed to make a bar chart? How am I supposed to visualize anything? It turns out you can visualize these things a lot. So some of the things you can do is you can use icons, you can use stock photos, you can put stories or quotes in boxes to let people know, or even photographs from what you were working on. So this is the slide that I know most of you want. Here is some of the musts when it comes to the expectations for your research posters. Okay, so this is part of the rubric that is from the Office of Undergraduate Research, because at the symposium, they will be giving awards for the best posters. So make sure that your poster is well organized and professional. The layout presents your research efficiently and effectively, that the graphics are good, that the text is concise. So for those of you that are writing out papers that might accompany your research poster, your research poster should not be a copy and paste of all those sentences and paragraphs, okay? The poster dimensions, they can be up to 48 inches to 36 inches high. It does not have to be that exact size, but just know that that is how big the board is that you will be like tacking it up to. You want to leave at least a 1-inch border, and that's just for printing so that nothing important gets cut off. No trifold stands or foam posters. It has to be printed on paper and it will be tacked up. All your images should be high resolution. So if you don't necessarily know what that is, 300 ppi, you sometimes kind of have to use Photoshop to know for sure what a resolution is on some of your images. If you do find yourself needing to do this, but you don't quite know, that's when you can reach out to me and Greg. And then these are just some general guidelines. If you're looking for a legible font size, everything on your screen when translated to 48 inches is so difficult to really visualize yourself. So when you are creating something and you're using something like PowerPoint, 85 to 120 for the main title point, 60 to 70 point for the headings, subheadings, and then like 30 point for the regular text. And all of that will be legible at 6 feet. So the reason why we say that is because at the symposium, the way that it would work is there's going to be tons of posters, and all of you are going to be dressed up, standing next to it, showcasing all the hard work and research that you did over the summer. And people like myself are going to be walking up and down those aisles. We're going to be doing the like conference stroll. I don't know what to, where you're sort of shuffling your feet and moving slowly, and you're glancing at every poster as you go. And usually people stand about 6 feet away from each other. So at 6 feet, I want to be able to look over at your poster, see the title very clearly, be able to see some graphics, some colors, and then be able to easily read some of the sections from where I'm standing. And now I am going to turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Donna. I want to add one thing to that slide. If you are someone who is going to submit your poster for consideration for exhibition at the Marriott Library, and we are going to do an exhibition of these summer posters, I want to re-emphasize the size of the poster. The frames that we put them in are precisely 36 inches by 48 inches, so it can never be bigger than that. And there's about a 1 inch margin or frame that goes around that. So if you have content that bleeds beyond 1 inch, so that would be, 47, 46 inches and 34 inches, it gets cut off. So if you want to be somebody who exhibits, take these notes into strong consideration. So there are a variety of softwares that we recommend that you use to make your posters. Historically, Microsoft PowerPoint has been used for poster creation, even though it was originally intended for presentations. And you have access to all of the Microsoft suite, including PowerPoint, on every University of Utah computer lab computer. And if you are a University of Utah affiliate, you can also download the Microsoft Suite to your personal computer, which is great. And then, of course, Microsoft offers free training courses. We have a URL there for you so that you can learn a little bit about how to use Microsoft PowerPoint to create your own posters and use the tool. We also think in recent years that two other tools have become really quite good at poster creation. The Adobe Express tool, which is free for everyone at the University of Utah to use, and Canva, which is free for everyone. If you sign up for it with your own email, you can use most of the features in Canva for free. They both offer templates for posters, and they both offer ways to create charts and graphs, icons, resources that you could actually create in those two tools, Adobe Express and Canva. You could actually export and put into a PowerPoint slide that becomes a poster as well. So there's some interchangeability there. I do want to note, though, with Canva, there are some features in Canva that do cost money. So if you, while looking at Canva, you see an icon that you really like and you want to add to your poster, and it has a $ or a crown symbol next to it, you will have to pay a fee for it. So just keep that in mind. And most importantly, if after you've created your poster in Canva, and you realize that you didn't choose a template that was 36 by 48 and you just want to change the size, that costs money. So from the very beginning, please go into the templates in Canva, make sure that you're choosing one that is 36 tall and 48 wide, and begin building your poster there. We do mention here that there's additional software for more advanced graphic designers, things like Photoshop and InDesign, and then LaTeX, which there is a poster element to it, but it is far more complex than the other three that we've talked about here. So speaking of templates, the University of Utah has created some templates at the Marriott Library. We've created a number of them. They are branded with the University of Utah logos. They are branded with the University of Utah official colors. And you can then replace the preliminary content that's in them, such as the word introduction and the fake text in there, and replace it with your own content, which is really super easy. I do want to make note that there are old poster designs, like you see on your screen here in the upper left. These are very text-based. They're very columnar as well. They work just fine, but they are not the ones that we are promoting for you today. We really want you to incorporate a lot more visual content for the ease of visibility, as you saw in that demonstration with the water bottle. So the lower right visual on this slide shows you a more visually based template that we have created for you. Your faculty, your research mentor may also have templates that they want you to use. Their departments may have created them. So there are templates available all across campus. And then we also have a link here for the Better Scientific Posters. This is a website that shows some innovative poster designs that started being created about a decade ago that really embraces the more visual content, the streamlined text base, and just sort of cutting to the chase with your poster. Keep in mind, you're at a live poster session with people milling about. You want to capture their attention. You don't have to tell them everything through the poster itself. You're going to engage in conversation and answer questions they have. So you sort of want to talk them through the basics and then engage in a conversation. So Donna mentioned color earlier as one of the 4 main tenets that we want you to think about. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth. Color conveys meaning, and it also helps to focus your poster. We all have presumptions about what a color means, because of the world that we live in. Red stoplights mean stop. That gives the idea of halting something. Or it could mean passion in your particular culture, or could mean blood, or it could mean University of Utah. So there are multiple meanings, but it's certainly some instantaneous thinking when we see color. The colors that you see on the left, these are the official colors of the University of Utah if you want to use those in your poster design. The main ones at the top, the crimson, the black, and the white, and then highlight colors below. And we've given you all of the hexadecimal system colors for you to be able to incorporate those into your presentations. But I do want to talk a little bit about how color is perceived in the different formats. When you are designing your posters, you are using a computer screen. The computer uses an RGB system, which is red, green, and blue to project. That is not the primary colors that you're used to from kindergarten. We are looking at the possibility of combining 16 million colors on that screen. And your eyes perceive those colors as a brighter tone. When you then export your PDF file or JPEG file and print it onto paper, the color printer uses a different color system. It's CMYK, which is cyan, sort of a bluish color, magenta, sort of a reddish color, yellow, and K stands for black. And it uses those colors to print out all of your design. And we perceive those by rather than having light projected from the computer screen, it's light that is bouncing off and back into our eyes. And we are only able to print about 2,000 distinct colors using color printers. So a lot smaller than those 16 million. And you'll notice when you print something that the colors look darker. So I recommend that you take those into consideration as you're designing, and you might even print a small version of your poster on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and just see how those colors look. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about is color blindness. There are people who will be looking at your posters who have one of a dozen different types of color blindness, and they actually see your poster differently. There are people who will perceive like red and green as the exact same tone of a dark gray. And if you are using a bar chart and red and green are your 2 opposing colors, they may see gray and gray and gray and gray and gray and gray and not actually see that. So if you take your poster file and put it through a color blindness simulator, you can look at various forms of color blindness and see how that human would actually perceive your poster and make sure that the components that you want to stand out are standing out the way that you want them to. So, because we're librarians, we want to point you to some resources that we have available to you on campus and freely on the internet for creating or adding visual components to your posters. For the first one, we're going to talk about how to get or create charts, graphs, and maps. There are some tools that are available that you can download. Tableau is a very sophisticated tool designed for incorporating data into visual presentations. There are two flavors of it, public and desktop. They have different capacities to them. Public is easier to get a hold of, but desktop is available to you if you have a .edu email address. It is free to use, so you can download it to your computer and use it that way. And we've given you URLs to grab them there. ArcGIS is very similar to that. It is about incorporating data into two-dimensional and three-dimensional maps and plotting that out. Canva, as I mentioned earlier, has the ability to create charts and graphs and iconography, and you can export those and use them in other tools, other presentation tools like PowerPoint. And we have given you a URL to go directly into the charts component there. Raw Graphs is a free online tool for uploading spreadsheets of data and then choosing different types of graph outputs and choosing different colors, and it will export. You can see images across the bottom of the slide there that gives you an idea of just how powerful that tool can be if you learn to use it and export. Webplot Digitizer is a tool that is recommended by some science faculty here at the University of Utah. I don't have any personal experience with it, but it is a tool that is highly recommended if you are working in the hard sciences. Similarly, the University of Utah Ski Institute, or the Scientific Computing and Imaging Institute, has developed its own software, probably 8 or 9 different software applications for visualizing data. So feel free to go visit their website and download their free software and learn how to use those to create your own visualizations. Oh, and then Donna added in, yes, of course, you can make basic charts and graphs using Microsoft Excel. Absolutely. So now I want to talk a little bit about icons. So these are visual elements, so like a pictograph of some kind, as you can see here. Images of animals, images of scientific elements. There are a variety of places where you can go. We've already mentioned Canva. If you go to the Canva design page, that's where you would be able to create icons. There's a website free to use called the Noun Project, where professional and amateur graphic designers have uploaded their own icons and made them available for you to use. They might ask you to give them credit, which we recommend that you do for anything that you're downloading that was created by someone else anyway, but they do make them oftentimes freely available. There are two that are very science-oriented. Philopic is one, and BioRender. Both of these really excellent for creating a wide variety of scientific oriented graphics. BioRender also has a lot of arts and humanities elements in it as well, because if we were thinking about maybe music therapy, they have elements that you might be able to pull out of there. And then Figma is a new tool, new to Donna and I, introduced to us by a colleague of ours who is also a graphic designer. Really great for being able to draw freehand if you wanted to. So it's got brushes and other things in there, but you can also choose from graphs, incorporate those, add some text, and then export a vector-based icon out of that particular tool. And then the last thing that I'm pointing out here is the Adobe QR code generator. If at some point you decide that you have way more research than you're able to put into your poster, and it's going to take up way too much room, you're going to lose all of that beautiful white space that makes your poster legible, you can create a QR code embed it into your poster, and that will then lead people to maybe a web page or a blog post or a directory of some kind that has all of the data, that has additional information, that has your full bibliography, whatever you want to put there. And the Adobe QR code generator will give you a very simple graphical QR code that you can then embed into your slideshow. And we have actually used it in this slideshow, as you'll see later on in our presentation. So I do want to emphasize again that when you are grabbing content that is created by somebody else, you want to understand your responsibility as a user of copyrighted content. Things that are created by government agencies and may not be held under copyright doesn't mean that you shouldn't be offering credit to those individuals for using it for your research and presentation purposes. So it may be fair use, but best practice is always to give credit where credit is due. So similar to icons, we also have photos and images available. You all know how to use Google and search for an image, which is great. You can grab things there. But keep in mind that Google often is pulling from a second or third party who is not necessarily the owner, and it is not necessarily the highest resolution image or the complete image or the right color of that particular image. So we always recommend that you go to the source as much as possible. And there are a number of places where you can go to find really great photographs and images to incorporate into your show. Or sorry, into your poster. And in many cases, you can do that freely with the copyright holder's permission. A place like Openverse is where you can go and get photographs that are stored on the Flickr website, but have been disseminated using the Creative Commons license, which is a way of giving permission to use the copyrighted object freely. Another place might be going to like the Smithsonian museums, the U.S. government's museums that have high resolution photos of the various topics that are covered in all of those museums, like Air and Space Museum, that sort of thing. And there are a number of databases that the Marriott Library, the university libraries subscribe to. There's a link here that takes you to our databases page that can take you to the image oriented ones. This is available to anyone who is using a computer on the University of Utah network or has a University of Utah ID when you're offsite. And some visually rich databases include things like Birds of the World. I have up here some popular magazines like Jet and Ebony and the Vogue Archive. JSTOR Images is a website that has incorporated images from museums from around the world. So that is a fantastic place to go. And then Anatomy TV, perfect for those of you who are in the biological sciences. So with the advent of AI-generated visual content, Donna and I wanted to just offer some cautionary information. We neither recommend nor discourage the use of generative artificial intelligence or AI-generated visual content for your posters. You do what works best for you. And there are a variety of programs. We have these listed here. There might be better ones that showed up yesterday or are going to be developed tomorrow. This is a landscape that is changing rapidly. But if you use sources like OpenArt, Midjourney, Firefly, Imagine, et cetera, just remember that these tools are not actually generating them out of thin air. They're actually taking source materials, millions of source materials, and melding them together and then producing something. So they are being based on copyrighted material. So if you choose to use AI content, we would encourage you to cite them as you would any other copyrighted image or text that you did not create yourself. And if you go to basic citation guides like the APA and MLA and Chicago style guides, they now have recommendations on how to cite generative AI content. If you want to read more about the University of Utah's recommendations for AI content, we have URLs here on this particular page. All right, I'm going to invite Donna back into the conversation and all of you. We are going to be showing you some examples of posters that students just like you created and presented over the past couple of years at the UROP Research Poster Symposia. And we are going to talk through a couple of posters, critiques, show you how it's done, and then we're going to ask you to start contributing as we go into the later posters here. So we're going to be looking first at the positive. What's working well at this poster? What do we like about it? And then we're going to also critique it and think about what could have been done differently? Why is it not working? And this will give you an idea of why it would be useful to do a draft version of your poster, then reach out to Donna or me or a colleague or a friend and have them do a critique with you, and then go back and finalize your poster. You will notice things, they will notice things that you didn't notice in the first place because you're just too close to the content. It's too precious to you. You created it. They're your babies. It's hard to make changes to those. So let's jump into the first poster, and Donna and I will have at it.
All right, Greg, what do you think of this one?
So this one was last year. It actually garnered a special jury prize for visual accessibility. You may remember from about 10 minutes ago when I was talking about people who have color blindness. This poster was run through the color blindness simulator, and they chose the colors to perfectly work with every type of color blindness and a typical vision. So it works for everyone who has sight and is looking at the posters. So we thought we would give it an award for doing that. And I think it looks beautiful. The colors here really are lovely. It's a rich red color. The purple, the pink, and the orange go beautifully with one another and stand out from one another. And in addition to that, they have a wide variety of charts and graphs which continue to use those same colors. We see the purple, we see the yellow, we see the pink. I think it's beautifully laid out. What do you think, Donna?
Yeah, I also agree. I like that they took the time to even include the colorblind friendly palette up at the top, to let them know that this is a colorblind friendly palette for accessibility, and then that is available throughout. I love the colorblind friendly palette to begin with. It's very colorful, it's very interesting, it's very pleasing. And then I also like that they push themselves outside of the default University of Utah red for like a much darker color, which actually made all of the titles like introduction, results, conclusions stand out a whole lot more, rather than it would be white or black text on top of that bright red.
And I'll add one last thing. This is a fairly simple template here. This is that old-fashioned template where the title runs across the entire top. I have 3 columns going down. I've got boxes around the introduction and the methods and the results, etc., and heavy text, although they have really balanced that. It's probably about 60% text and 40% visual, which is really nice. So they used that basic template to its strengths. So maybe we should move on to the next one.
Yeah. Should we
And I
point
want to
out
encourage
any?
everyone, if you see stuff that you want us to read out from the chat or just share with us, feel free to start contributing things into the chat now.
Yeah, if you feel better just using the chat, feel free to use the chat. If anybody wants to unmute, they can also unmute. I will say my one critique to this poster, since it's about ants, I wish there was a picture of an ant somewhere. Maybe a bunch of ants. Maybe ants like, I don't know, a border
Yeah,
of ants. Something.
they could have had some sort of graphic image that they blew up to the full size of the poster and put it into the backdrop so that it could have been this sort of maybe a pink color or a gray color that sits in the background, doesn't disturb the visibility of the images or the text, but somehow your brain sees that ant the entire time. It would have been a really nice way. I agree with you there. That said, this poster won sort of best in show because it had such a strong visual element. All of those graphics that you see there of the blood vessels around the heart were created using one of the Ski Institute's applications. So it was a locally grown, developed data visualization tool, and they used it quite successfully here.
Okay, we're going to go over to coffee beans.
So tell us what you think. What are you seeing that's working well on this particular poster? Great, a nice large title, so we can read that from far away and know what it's about. Yeah, you immediately know it's about coffee beans.
Why do you know it's immediately about coffee, besides just the title? Yes, good spacing. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
those
bean graphics. I love
those
the little
beans.
bean icons and the little coffee icons.
That's it. Yeah, so somebody pointed out that there's good spacing, so that concept of white space, it doesn't have to truly be white. You'll notice that the white space is actually gray in this particular case. It's a white backdrop, and then each of the sections has a light gray, which pops them off of the background, but still allows the text to stand out. And we still think of that as white space. It's sort of empty space around the text.
Yes, somebody said the pictures of the methods. Yeah, photographs are really, really good to include on things like research posters because they are so visual.
So Megan pointed out the balance here. So there's a chart right in the middle, and then we have sort of photographs or more image-based content on the outside, and that really offers this sort of balance to the poster. Nice.
Yes. And yeah, having something big in the middle of your poster will also capture your audience really quickly. All right, one person in the chat asked, concerning the tables, I've not really seen a way that isn't very plain. Can you talk about how to make it interesting?
We actually have some examples later on of different graphics that I think maybe
Mhm.
we will point out specifically that makes them pop here. Let's go to the next slide, and then we'll see one of the things that Donna was talking about, which is that sort of center large image and being able to really grab attention. That super large title at the top, and you'll notice that they've chosen two different colors. If you read this particular title, all of the text, its smaller culverts are at risk in burned Utah watersheds. But if you read just the blue, there's a separate sort of sentence there that cuts to the chase. Small culverts at risk. And this is a really great way of grabbing the attention of your viewer as they're walking by and drawing them in. And then all of those visual elements that are popping in, that are grabbing their attention in the middle. Maybe to address that question about the charts and graphs and making them more interesting, I would say just above the shoulder of the presenter here, you see the blue and the orange there. So bold colors and thicker lines in this particular case is capturing interest rather than a line graph. One possible answer to that question.
Yeah, or using something like maps and icons, where in this case they have the map of Utah and showing where there were wildfires.
So let me ask those of you in the audience, what would you critique about this particular poster? What might you have done differently if you were given the opportunity? So that black background, it might actually be just a dark, dark, dark blue. It's hard to see here. So, okay. I think the information gets a little overshadowed by the high contrast in color and size. Feels a bit imbalanced, the pictures versus text. So it's maybe too image heavy in this particular case and not enough text in this particular case. Somebody suggested using red for the big titles. I want to say that this poster is actually from a student from Utah State University, so they probably wouldn't choose to use red because this color blue is their color blue. So, but if you were at the University of Utah, yes, you might choose that. So we have almost contradictory comments here. More explanation of results, and then Ellie says, "I love how simple the explanations are with the text, and it's so easy to read. Maybe more information on the results would be good." This is the decision that you need to make. Maybe your advisors, your mentors can be a part of this conversation. We are suggesting less text, drawing people in, and then having a conversation. The one critique that I didn't see come up, and maybe you can't see the whole poster, so you weren't 100% sure. There is no QR code here that would lead you to that more information. If all of you are feeling like there's not quite enough content on this poster, if they had a QR code, they could point you to more of the data and more of a narrative that gives you all of that content, even if the presenter wasn't standing there to have a conversation and fill you in just by talking with you. All right, so this one is a 2024 poster, and it actually won for Best in Humanities and Fine Arts. And I want to point that out because Donna was talking earlier about presenting different types of data, right? And this arts and humanities presentation has less of the numerical data and more qualitative data that they're presenting here. So let's talk about what we like about this poster first.
The visuals, the graphics, yeah, the strong color use, the art. Yeah, these are really good graphics. I will note that this poster was actually made using Canva. This is one of the first results when you look up a research poster template on Canva.
Yeah, I think the iconography is really strong here. Having a handprint in red is maybe connoting some form of violence. We've seen this, if you're somebody who watches, police dramas or murder mysteries, that sort of thing. And the hand print on the mouth indicating somebody being silenced and not being able to speak. The icon of the red dress is actually something that is used regularly within the conversation of this particular topic of Native American or indigenous women who go missing or who are abused. So that's they're using that particular iconographic image to communicate very quickly the message that they're trying to connote here. So I want to say Yasmin said very small text. So that's switching to the critique, and I agree with you 100%. The body text in this particular poster is much too small. And if you look really close, you can see that it's also in italics. And that small font and turned at an angle makes it very difficult to read. So that would have been something that I would have asked this presenter to change. Maybe edit down the text, a little less text, so that we can then make it a slightly larger font size and change it to a standard or normal text rather than italicized.
Yes, in the case of this one, they really held themselves to what the template was, and tried to make everything that they had fit a template that was not necessarily made for them rather than the other way around. So if you find yourself in that situation, you should try and make the template work for you and not try to force, things like your introduction into a space that might be too small for it.
So two more things that I want to talk about. So Ellie points out the quote at the top. So in that particular case, I like the italics. We associate italics with a direct quote from someone, and it's a larger font size, so it stands out beautifully, and it really probably brings you some sort of understanding and meaning to the rest of the poster if you read it. I also want to point out, Donna mentioned this earlier with your color selection, that you want to choose between 2 to 4 colors. And more or less, there are only 3 colors in this particular poster. We have red, shades of red, 2 or 3 shades of red, but basically red, black, and beige or shades of beige. So that's useful to keep in mind. Color families can count as a single color and not overwhelm the palette here.
And as Kate mentioned in the chat, like, what would you like us to take away from what you found? What's the news headline or the elevator pitch? Yeah. So a lot of times people will make the title, which will usually be pretty, flat, and not necessarily say what the big takeaway is. In which case you can make your title kind of small. Your title doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest thing on your poster. And instead, you can have a sentence or a short blurb that says, like, what was so impactful about your research that you were able to discover, and make that the big headline in the center of your poster.
Yeah, and this poster actually does it in a couple of places. We have that quote directly underneath the title. We also have a pull-out quote in the lower left corner. So the ability to pull out those sort of salient points or that elevator pitch can be done in a variety of locations and multiple locations on a single poster. All right, what
All
do we
right.
like about this poster first? Okay, we have an interesting chart or graph or sort of design layout in the middle there. Somebody noticed that the colors used in that design in the middle matches the color family of the photograph. Absolutely. That's a very astute observation.
Yes, and that was very much on purpose. The results are big and in the center. Yes, the center diagram. So yeah, for those of you that might be working on a project that is entirely qualitative data, survey data, quotes from people that you spoke to or focus groups. This is a really cool, interesting way for you to show those kinds of results. So the way that they did it was they basically were able to classify all of the qualitative data into 3 different themes, and then they found corresponding quotes that exemplified those themes, and then color coded it into this large piece in the results.
Yeah, and as Mia points out, chat bubbles make it obvious that they are including quotes. Yeah, those call out bubbles are things that we have seen in comics and graphic novels our entire lives. So instantaneously, we know that the words that are inside this shape is a quote. Great. It's so nice to see a designer like this taking advantage of our sort of underlying understanding of the visual world around us, and that the viewer is going to instantly be on top of that and doesn't have to make an effort to figure it out. So I hope you're able to incorporate that type of visual content in your posters as well.
Yeah, and
So
since we got 10 minutes left, do we want to go through a few more?
well, part of me wants to do a critique on this because we thought everything was really nice, but there might be some things that people think could change on this particular poster as well.
One more picture on the left to balance the visuals. Yes. A lot of text. Colors might not be colorblind friendly.
So the gray might be a little boring. So I might agree that the gray boxes behind the subheadings, maybe they should have chosen that bright purple or a yellow, which is also in the photograph, to really brighten this poster up. It's a lot of gray tone and it makes it a little duller. Yep.
A different font for the title to make them stand out more. The words
Yep,
are
the
too
title doesn't
small.
stand
Yeah.
out quite as much as on other posters. Yeah, so small tweaks would make this a perfect poster rather than just a great poster. I want you to talk about this one, Donna.
Oh, this one. So I actually want to hear from the chat. How are we feeling about this poster? A bit nervous. Phoebe, let me tell you, walking through that poster hall, I did too.
Well, they're trying to hide the
So,
BYU logo. Well, if there's
shots
anything
fired.
obscured on these photos, it's because we obscured it just to keep these
Yes.
anonymous.
All right. So, um, these were students that did do, so this is more of a cautionary tale. These are students that did do like some really interesting health sciences research, and we're looking at heart rate variability. And for reasons, I think to grab attention and potentially because they might have thought that it was amusing, made the QR code half of the poster. And so this is a word of caution to all of you. The research poster that you are creating is definitely not the time for jokes or to be amusing. It is a time to be professional, and that is what is expected of you and all researchers. Unless your research is on the effects of laughter on heart rate variability.
Now,
Even then,
mind
don't
you,
do
I,
this.
I
Just
think
don't do this.
I think you could use, play on words and have amusing visual elements to draw people in. This one, it seems to go to an extreme, as Aurora mentions, that it seems like they're utilizing the QR code to give all of their explanations and not really taking the time and the effort to put it onto the poster. So.
Yeah, I actually went to a librarian conference once where one of the posters in the poster session, like 90% of the poster was a photo of the woman's cat. And it said, like, come talk to me about my cat. But then her actual research was like really tiny and it had absolutely nothing to do with cats. It was just to grab everybody's attention. And did it work? Yes, I'm still talking about it. I looked across and I was like, oh, kitty. But also, I don't remember her research.
All right. Maybe we should go through one or two posters quickly and then wrap it up. So if nothing else, I want to point out this is a University of Utah poster that does not use red, and
Yeah.
I think it looks beautiful. This shade of lavender or purple goes really nicely with the crimson red block U that is down on the bottom. But you don't have to. Whatever fits your mood or your particular topic is nice. Ava does point out, though, that there doesn't seem to be enough color variation. So when we were talking about color family, it's absolutely true. There are two colors on this poster. It is black and lavender. And maybe a third color family would be useful to make things pop.
All
Okay.
right. How are we feeling about this one, chat?
Text is a bit hard to read. I'm interested to know a little more about what you think or why you think that is. I have some answers, like the text is really pushing far left up against the edge of each of their boundaries, the boxes. Not enough white space around the call out quotes in the lower left-hand corner. Somebody says that it actually looks like two separate posters, that they don't like that middle box, that red bar going across, sort of dividing it in half. That's an interesting observation.
All right, we did get a question, like a general question from Ellie. Do you need to include a section for each part of your poster? Introduction, methods, results, discussion. Sometimes it can feel like a lot of text, but you want to make sure to include everything.
We are going to share this presentation, and there are going to be a few more posters that you'll see that we might not get a chance to critique. And I want you to come back and look at how different individuals conquered that particular challenge. I think all of the posters, most of the posters, do have all of those basic elements of an introduction, the methodology, and the results, and an analysis, and then a conclusion, and oftentimes the bibliography at the end of the works cited. But some people are more successful at incorporating it and not having it feel like too much text. So I want you to just look at it, analyze it, and look at the ones that seem or appeal to you, and figure out how they did it in their poster as a possible solution for your own posters.
Yeah, and I would say that whether or not you need to include all of those sections is whether or not those sections occurred in your research. In the case of some of your research groups, you won't necessarily have things like a methods section, or you probably will have a methodology, but you might want to keep your introduction a lot briefer. You can use bullet points. That's a really easy way to keep the text pretty, and you don't necessarily have to use full sentences because you're not writing the essay, you're just getting across the information. And it does always tend to feel like a lot of text, but there is a balance. Right?
So we're nearing the end of the presentation. We are going to take note of the questions that came up in the chat. There may have been quite a few of them that shot past us, and we are going to respond to those, send answers to Shelley, who will then be able to distribute it to everyone who came to this session or signed up for this session today. So you'll be able to get some of our answers, and then we'll include the presentation itself so that you are able to review these things. I think maybe we should slide all the way down to our design resources.
Here's just for anybody doing visual arts, here's a visual arts poster.
That was an award winner for visual content.
Then there's some others. So to wrap up, here are some poster design resources for anybody that is looking for some. The undergrad research symposium, I believe you have to register for that, so you got to make sure you do that. That way, when me and Greg come start walking through and we see all of your posters, there are more education videos for you to watch through OUR if you wanted to learn more. There is a library guide, which is just a resource website through the libraries that tells you more about research posters, as well as how to print one. That is probably the part that you're going to need to know the most. And there is a library guide for visual communication in case you want to harness that aspect more. If you do need any help, though, you can contact us. Both me and Greg are fully available for 30-minute consultations. If you use those QR codes, you can make a Zoom meeting with either of us. I am also up at the Eccles Health Sciences Library, so if you are in the upper part of campus and you'd much rather sit next to me while working on it, I am more than happy to do that.
Right, and as we talked about earlier in the presentation, having a rough draft of your poster ready to go is a perfect time to reach out to us so that we can offer you these types of critiques that we've been doing for the past half hour. So.
And of course, a reminder to do the event evaluation, especially for those that want to receive credit for attending. I do want to get to a couple of the questions that came in here at the end. One person asked, let me see, who is it? Darcy asked, what do you recommend using, italics, bold, or underline to emphasize text in a poster? My default is always bold because I feel like that's the one that really grabs people's attention. I will use italics usually to emphasize a word in the middle of a sentence, especially if it's something said, like a quote. But generally, I use bold on a poster because that does grab people's eyes the most. Greg,
Uh,
what do you think?
well, a variation on the bold might be, we saw that one poster where the it was all on sort of a dark blue center, and the title was all in white except for four words that were then in blue. They were all the same weight, so they used the color of sort of a mid-tone blue as a way to bold the text. So it's possible to also change the color of the text and simulate something that works like bold, where it catches the eye and makes that particular text pop. I would agree. I wouldn't use underline in any cases because it's going to take away your white space and make it harder to read that text. And italics, I would reserve for probably for things like a quotation mark, a quotation in your like a call out of some kind. So.
And then Rachel asks, are the posters you're exhibiting here just ones you thought were demonstrative of something and downloaded, took photos of, or did the authors also permit the usage of them in this way?
The posters were all from past presentations, and they were either uploaded on the OUR website for public dissemination, and in some cases where we took actual photographs of individuals, we told them why we were taking the photo and how it was going to be used, and then we anonymized those posters so that they couldn't be identified in this presentation. And we pulled them because they were worth having a conversation. In many cases, we thought they were really great, but needed just a tiny bit of change. And in some cases, there were some egregious flaws to them, and we wanted to point them out because those are common enough that we want you to be aware of them before you start designing your own posters.
We're in the Sill Center, just north of the Union parking lot. We're at our.utah.edu. And you can email us at our@utah.edu. And thank you again, Donna and Greg. This is always a great presentation.
Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to hearing from you and having a consultation.
Thanks, everyone. If you need anything, now you know where to find us.